Hello YouTube, it's CM Maritime History here back in the video, and I'm sorry I didn't get Andre Doria uploaded yet. One thing or another has caused me to not be able to upload the video. Trust me, I wanted it uploaded, but I simply just can't get it recorded. It's a long video. Anyway, I thought I'd cover another topic, SS Burdigala, which I was gonna cover later on, but I thought I might as well just do it now. Nor Norchester Lloyd first ordered the SS Kaiser Wilhelm the Grosse with the goal of breaking the North Atlantic speed record then held by Cunard Line's RMS Lucania, thereby claiming the Blue Ribbon for Germany. Soon thereafter, the company ordered a second Atlantic Greyhound from the Schickau Workday shipyard in Danzig, Germany. The goal of cementing their control of the Blue Ribbon was built into the terms of the contract NDL signed with Schickau, I think that's how it's said. The specifications demanded a speed of at least 22.5 knots, or 25.9 miles per hour, for at least 6 hours, and a guaranteed minimum speed of 21 knots, or 24 miles per hour. Figures intended to ensure that transatlantic trips would not exceed 6 days. Kaiser Friedrich, built by Schickau as number 587, was powered by two quadruple expansion reciprocating steam engines that drove two three-blade propellers. These five-engine cylinders were fed by 10 boilers whose fumes were exhausted through three large funnels. And yes, the Kaiser Friedrich is actually Burdigala, but it's not Burdigala yet. The entire plant was designed to generate 28,000 kilowatts. No, 28,000 SHP, or 21,000 kilowatts, at full power. Contrary to common shipbuilding practices of the era, the engineers placed the engines slightly forward between the second and third boilers. The boilers were grouped into three separate watertight compartments. The ship was named after German Emperor Friedrich III. By the end of her completion, the 21,000-ton Kaiser Friedrich had costed 525,000 euros, surpassing by far the initial budgeted cost. The flush deck design, coupled with relatively low freeboard and a long forecastle, was distinctive, as was the ship's curvilinear bridge. In addition to these features, Kaiser Friedrich, like some other German steamers of her time, was designed and constructed to operate as an armed merchant cruiser in the event of war, being intended to serve as an ancillary unit in the Kaiser like a marine. Although in terms of the technical characteristics of the Kaiser Friedrich was inferior to the Kaiser Wilhelm the Grosse, in terms of interior design and lavishness, she was a lot more sophisticated, with a harmonious blend of high quality and good taste. All the 180 first class and 111 second class cabins are placed on higher decks, offering their occupants remarkable views. Some of the first class cabins are also convertible in large seating areas. In addition to the 420 crew, the ship could accommodate 1,350 passengers, out of which 400 in first class, 250 second, and 700 passengers in third. Like the most sumptuous transatlantic ships of her time, the Kaiser Friedrich's main dining and living rooms are lit by extravagant chandeliers, and the surrounding walls dominated by the hanging caryatids representing the art and sciences, and decorated with painted panels portraying Kaiser Friedrich III's family and their respective coat of arms. The walls were painted in the shade of ivory, adorned by gold ornaments, while the carpets were all red. The most prominent feature, though, was the ship's promenade deck, especially in the first-class areas where the deck was open so as not to obstruct the view, and extended along the highest point of the ship's admit for 100 meters. The ship was also equipped with smoking lounges, bars, a music room, and a library. The construction work was completed in May 1898, and the Kaiser Friedrich embarked on its maiden voyage on May 12, 1898, from Danzig to Bremerhaven, the home port of Norchester Lloyd. During the sea trials, the engineers of NDI, I believe I'm saying Norchester Lloyd right, but I could be wrong. That's how I've always said it, which were present on board, discovered disappointment that even with the greatest of efforts, you can only reach a speed of 20 knots and by no means exceed it. Upon the ship's arrival at the port, and due to its poor performance with respect to the low speed she had achieved during the trials, NDL categorically denied receiving the ship, adhering strictly to the explicit terms of the contract. Only after F. Schickau had confirmed that he would significantly improve the ship's speed and performance did the NDL agree to include the Kaiser Friedrich in its fleet, planning its first transatlantic voyage from Bremerhaven to Southampton, and from there onward to New York City. Since both companies had titles of ownership of the ship, one can say with certainty that they were both interested in finding a solution for the speed problems. The fact that the largest share of ownership, 62%, belonged to F. Schickau, which at that point was trying to penetrate the global shipping market, combined with the explicit terms of the contract that made the return of the NDL ship not only possible, but also likely in case it deviated from the terms of agreement, brought F. Shikakawa in a rather difficult defensive position. In order to preserve the prestige of the company, it was essential that a solution should be found, a solution satisfactory to all. The first step involved sending the ship off to Southampton, where it underwent some structural adjustments, whose principal objective was to improve the speed. The ship remained for several days in the dry dock yards, Prince of Wales, during which time the length of its two propeller blades was shortened by 30 centimeters. On June 1st, 1898, the ship sailed back to Bremerhaven. On June 7, 1898, the SS Kaiser Friedrich began its sea journey from Bremen to Southampton, under the helm of an experienced NDL captain, Ludwig A. Stormer, I think I said that right. Next day, on June 8, 1898, the ship's first transatlantic trip to New York City commenced, carrying 209 passengers in first and second classes and 183 in the third, of which the majority were immigrants. The journey had started off well, but very quickly the bad weather and a number of mechanical problems significantly reduced the speed of the ship. Afterwards, the left engine ceased operating for 20 hours and 26 minutes, shortly followed by the right engine, which stopped running for 11 hours and 42 minutes. Fortunately for the passengers and crew, engines halted separately, not simultaneously. The cause of mechanical problems was later considered by ship specialists to be overheating of bearings, or as it was formerly stated in the Marine Engineer magazine, the failure of the slide valves to work smoothly and the breakage of studs on the air pump brackets, so that proper vacuum could not be maintained. The result was disastrous, as it took 7 days, 10 hours, and 15 minutes for the SS Kaiser Friedrich to cover the classic route from Southampton to Sandy Hook, New York City, where it arrived on June 16, 1898. Another several hours of delay were added to its already poor time count, owing to the fact that the ship had to stay outside the New York City harbor and wait for entry allowance because of the mines that were placed to guard the harbor after the outbreak of the Spanish-American War in April 1898. The next day, the NDL hosted a press conference at the ship's foyer, which was attended by media representatives, shipbuilders, engineers, and ship owners. As publicized by the New York Times in an article dated June 17, 1898, it headlined, "The Kaiser Friedrich. The fine big steamship makes her maiden trip in over 7 days, engines easily overheated. The average vessel speed during its first transatlantic crossing was 17.73 knots, pointing out that nobody knows the actual maximum speed of the vessel, as the average speed had been lowered due to mechanical problems." On 25th of June 1898, Kaiser Friedrich set off on a return voyage without passengers, which lasted 9 days, 2 hours, and 30 minutes to Southampton. Given the very low average speed of 15 knots and the new set of mechanical problems, which arose again during her return, NDL canceled Kaiser Friedrich's next 2 scheduled trips, and the ship was sent to F. Shikakawa's shipyard in Danzig for repairs, always with the aim to improve her speed limit to exceed 20 and reach 22 knots. On September the 4th, 1898, the ship was given back to the NDL. On September the 14th, 1898, Kaiser Friedrich embarked on her second transatlantic trip from Southampton to New York City, where she arrived after 6 days and 12 hours, on September 21st, 1898, arriving at an average speed of 19 to 20 knots. Corrections made by F. Shikakawa's engineers slightly improved the ship's speed performance, but not enough to cover the most important term of the contract, which is set the speed at 22 knots. Over the next 3 journeys, SS Kaiser Friedrich had sailed by the end of the travel season in December 1898. The speed remained at these levels without significant change. In the winter of 1898-1899, the ship remained for 3 months at Shikakawa's shipyard in Danzig for corrections and repairs, always with the aim to increase its service speed. In addition to installing new air pumps on the engine and boiler rooms, the 3 funnels were extended by 4.5 meters, resulting in a noticeable change in appearance, as you can see here. With the start of the new season, the mended ship set off its first transatlantic voyage in the year 1899 from Southampton to New York City on March 5, 1898, the crossing which took 7 days and 40 minutes before reaching the Sandy Hook lighthouse, after the ship had lost 2 blades from its propellers, extinguished the last bit of hope that the ship with any new changes would ever reach the 22-knot threshold. Because the NDL did not own any other ship of Kaiser Friedrich's size to cover the gap which Kaiser Friedrich's removal from their fleet would cause, and also because the NDL did not want to return a ship 38% owned by them to the manufacturers, they patiently decided they would give Shikakawa's engineers yet another chance to finally put it right. 8 more transatlantic trips followed, the shortest of which was 6 days, 22 hours, and 30 minutes, which finally and irrevocably classified the ship as belonging to the 19 knots class. After all Norchester Lloyd's patience had been worn off, on June 27, 1899, during the ship's return from New York City, the company returned SS Kaiser Friedrich back to its manufacturer on a formal ground that the ship did not cover the term of the contract, which set its service speed at 22 knots. At the same time, NDL ordered a new ship, bigger and faster, but with tested specifications same as those of Kaiser Wilhelm the Grosse, by the AG Vulcan. The new ship was SS Kronprinz Wilhelm, which claimed and won the Blue Ribbon Trophy 2 years later in 1902, reaching the average speed of 23.09 knots. Until the delivery of this new ship, which bore the name of Kaiser Wilhelm II's son, the NDL temporarily replaced Kaiser Project with the SS Kaiserin Maria Theresa, former SS Spree, which sank in October 1904 during the Russian-Japanese War. Immediately after the delivery of the new ship, a long legal battle between the NDL and the Shikukou Company had begun, which ended in 1908 with Dorchester Lloyd's victory. The press at the time from both sides of the Atlantic was widely involved in this unprecedented event. New York Times, in the article dated June 28, 1899, captioned Kaiser Friedrich Objected, extensively analyzes the underlying facts and causes. The general manager of F. Shikukou vigorously objected to the court decision, claiming that the culprit was the poor quality of coal used as fuel by the NDL. On August 7, 1899, he wrote a letter to the chief editor of the renowned magazine The Marine Engineer, which reads, Dear Sir, in your esteemed journal of August 1, page 207, you wrote that the Kaiser Friedrich has been withdrawn by the Dorchester Lloyd from service and returned to her builders. This being not the fact, I request you kindly to rectify it in the next issue of your esteemed journal. According to the following data, Kaiser Friedrich was the property of the firm of F. Shikukou, and in spite of her build as a high-speed passenger steamer requiring good quality of coal, the Dorchester Lloyd mostly gave her very inferior coal. Besides, many of the stokers have no previous experience. Under these circumstances, it could not give surprise that the Kaiser Friedrich was not able to develop her full speed, and there was no other way for the firm of F. Shikukou built but to withdraw its steamer and give her into other hands. Kaiser Friedrich will make her next voyages under the flag of the Hamburg America Line. Reiterating to you in advance my best thanks to this rectification, I remain, dear sir, yours very respectably, F. Shikukou. That was the letter. The announcement by F. Shikukou Shipyards that the Kaiser Friedrich will make its next journeys under the flag of Hamburg America Line marked the beginning of the second chapter of later to be renamed SS Burdigala's history. In 1898, Hapag, or Hamburg America, had sold one of its ocean-going ships, SS Normannia, to the Spanish government, where she was used as an auxiliary cruiser by the name SS Patriota during the Spanish-American War. The sale created a gap in the company's transatlantic fleet at a time when business was thriving, as the second wave of mass immigration to America had reached its peak. Furthermore, because of the Spanish-American and the Second Anglo-Boer War in South Africa, a number of American and British ships had been pulled out of the North Atlantic route, creating in turn a considerable void in shipping. The shortage of ships became a tremendous opportunity for German and French maritime companies, ready to reap enormous profits by covering the gap. Hapag was the first to try to exploit this opportunity, but the absence of SS Normannia had been evident given that its three major ocean vessels could not satisfy the increased demand. In order to fill this gap while waiting to add the SS Deutschland into its fleet, Hapag decided to charter SS Kaiser Friedrich from the Shikukou Company, and it included immediately an express line connecting Hamburg to Southampton, Cherbourg, and New York City. On October 2, 1899, SS Kaiser Friedrich embarked on its first transatlantic voyage under the Hapag colors of a red flag and the city of Hamburg coat of arms on her bow, departing from Southampton for New York City. Towards the end of the journey, the ship went off course and ran aground near the coast of New Jersey, but without damage. Soon after her return to Europe, a second passage on the same route followed, which ended with the ship's homecoming to Southampton on November 16, 1899. During the winter of 1899 and 1900, Kaiser Friedrich remained in Hamburg, where repairs were undertaken by the well-known shipyards of Blum and Voss, mainly for increasing the number of cabin passengers, as well as its cargo capacity. At the start of the new travel season, on March 30, 1900, the ship set off from Southampton to New York City. This departure marked the beginning of the most stable and successful period of the liner's operating life, since Hapag was not interested in breaking speed records, and since taking delivery of SS Deutschland was soon expected, the speed of Kaiser Friedrich was deemed more than sufficient by the company. Over the next 7 months, the ship had completed 8 full transatlantic trips between Plymouth and New York City, out of which most of the eastbound crossings took less than 7 days to complete. Her best performance was recorded during its journey back from New York City to Plymouth in August 1900, which lasted 6 days and 11 hours. According to the press, Kaiser Friedrich seemed to have found her appropriate home fleet as she was traveling at speed levels equal to those of Hapag's other ocean liners, such as the SS First Bismarck, the SS Columbia, and the SS Augusta Victoria, while offering a more luxurious and sophisticated stay. On June 30th, 1900, after her fourth passage, the ship arrived at the Hauppauge Quay at Hoboken, New Jersey, where the docks in Rochester Lloyd were also located. Her arrival coincided with the Great Fire of Hoboken, during which many of NDL ships were destroyed, among them SS Kaiser Wilhelm the Grosse, which was not completely burned but had suffered major damages. It was also a tragic incident with many victims and enormous financial losses. During the fire, Kaiser Project participated in several rescue operations, rendering crucial assistance. The newspapers at the time, as well as the official shipping records, made explicit references about the heroism of her crew. In July 1900, the eagerly awaited SS Deutschland, built by the A.G. Vulcan shipyards, made its maiden voyage under the Hauppauge flag from Hamburg to New York City. For a few months she had one lovely band speed trophy, reaching an average speed of 23 knots, thus taking the lead away from NDL's SS Kaiser Wilhelm the Grosse. HAPA's dynamic entry into the higher class of transatlantic shipping also meant the termination of SS Kaiser Project's charter. Although the F. Schickekau Company had hoped that after a successful integration into the Hamburg America Line's fleet, they would proceed with the ship's purchase, Hauppauge and other plans decided to expand its fleet by building new ships. In October 1900, Kaiser Project departed for her last transatlantic crossing from New York City to Hamburg, where she arrived in November of that year. The ship was subsequently returned to her owner, F. Schickekau, who in turn decommissioned her, remaining mothballed in the port of Hamburg for the next 12 years. Despite the fact that SS Kaiser Project was a beautifully built ship with a service speed perfectly satisfactory to meet the requirements of most shipping routes, negative reputation would have been created around her name, as well as her failure to fulfill the purpose for which she had been built, caused her abandonment and eventually a misfortune that she likely did not deserve. It was the first time, with the exception of the tragic first sailing and subsequent ill fate of the SS Great Eastern, that the possession of a ship of such class was considered by many as an unnecessary luxury. Characteristic for the tarnished reputation and the financial damage caused by the failure of the Kaiser Project is the fact that in the commemorative album called Die Schickekau Werke in Elbing, Danzig und Pillau, 1837-1912, which F. Schickekau issued in 1912 to celebrate the company's 75th anniversary, there is no reference whatsoever about Kaiser Project. Only after a couple of years in the company's history book did a small reference to the ship appear, under her new name SS Burdigala, as a memory of F. Schickekau's lost opportunity to truly play a part in the worldwide shipping. SS Kaiser Project remained mothballed in the harbor of Hamburg until 1910. This was a period when the newly formed Norwegian company, Norwegian American Line, was experiencing difficulties in trying to raise initial capital that was essential for its establishment. F. Schickekau Company made a proposal to Norse to become a shareholder, promising to provide them with the capital they needed to survive if they would agree to purchase the Kaiser Project. The proposal was accepted, and the agreement reached the point where Norse gave the ship the name of SS Leif Erikson in honor of the Icelandic explorer of the 10th century. Unfortunately for Schickekau, at the last minute, Norse decided not to purchase the Kaiser Project, preferring to await the completion of ships they had already ordered. 2 more years had passed before a solution was found, a solution that finally made Kaiser Project active again. Her salvation was called Compagnie de Navigation Sud-Atlantique, which you may remember ran Cap Marcona and Cap Trafalgar, and came from France in 1912, marking the Actually, I believe that was Cap Trafalgar. No, that was L'Atlantique. Sorry, I messed that up. I think. No, that was Hamburg side that ran those two. No, it was L'Atlantique, sorry. Marking the beginning of the third period of the ship's history. In March and April 1912, Sud-Atlantique was indispensable to acquire a large, fast, and impressive ship, which would reveal the aspirations of the company and stress its authority. They found all which I've been looking for in the SS Kaiser Project, which they purchased from F. Schickekau on May 1, 1912, at 4 million French francs, an amount considered to reflect 1/3 of the ship's actual value. The ship was renamed SS Burdigala in accordance with the practice of Sud-Atlantique to give its ships ancient Latin names, such as Lutetia for Paris, Gallia for France, and Burdigala for the city of Bordeaux, which was its base. According to maritime history expert Arnold Cludaz, SS Burdigala was converted at the Blobenwasser shipyards in Hamburg. In addition to the changes done in the layout and allocation of lodging space, adjustments were also made to the basic ship systems, such as fitting of new boilers. Moreover, the ship was painted white with Sud-Atlantique's coat of arms decorating the funnels, a red cock, symbol of ancient Gaul, since the Latin name for the cock is the same as the name for Gaul Gallus. Extensive repairs and upgrading of SS Kaiser Project and the SS Burdigala had taken longer than initially planned, resulting in delayed delivery of the ship, which was supposed to become operational on September 22, 1912. Realizing that under the circumstances, Sud-Atlantique would not be able to fulfill terms the contract signed with the French government, they decided to charter the SS Atlantique from the Messageries Maritimes, of which the company finally managed to make its first scheduled trip on time. After completing of the restoration work, SS Burdigala sailed from Hamburg to Bordeaux, where she was welcomed with great enthusiasm, considering that she was the largest and fastest ship in service of the South Atlantic at the time. She would maintain this honorary title for a whole year. On September 26, 1912, the inclusion of SS Burdigala in the fleet of Sea Navigation Sud-Atlantique was celebrated with a luxurious dinner on board. 9 days later, on October 5th, Burdigala had set off on its first journey with Buenos Aires as its final destination, flying the flag of Sud-Atlantique on her mast. Let's see. Oh, on some of these photos, Burdigala is shown with its hull painted white, which, as you can see here, her hull is white, which coincided with the ship's white period, a phase when she had first begun her career under the ownership of Sea Sud-Atlantique. On other photos, hull is painted black with a white strip around the gunwale. This latter refers to the second half of the year 1913, when the decision was made for all Sea Sud-Atlantique's vessels to be painted this way. On November 1st, 1913, SS Burdigala was commissioned, as she remained decommissioned, to remain mothballed yet again in the port of Bordeaux until the breakout of the First World War. From 1915 to 1916, up to her time of sinking, the ship continued to carry troops to the Dardanelles and Thessalonica, which is the base of the Entente Allied forces. The route followed from Toulon, passing south of Sardinia and Sicily, and with a first stop in Valletta, Malta, continuing and rounding the Cape Malea on the Piraeus, and from there through the Chios Channel to Thessalonica at the port. At this time, Greece led to the declaration of war against the combined German, Austro-Hungarian, Bulgarian, and Turkish forces on 25th of November 1916 by the Eleftherios Venizelos government had remained neutral, and any actions on its territory and seas was the case, at least theoretically, among those forces engaged in the war. On November 13, 1916, the ship sailed empty from Thessalonica, Greece, destined for Toulon, France, for loading more troops and war materials, captained by CDR Francois Roland and the chief engineer Auguste Richard. The next day, November 14, 1916, at 10:45 in the morning, while the ship was about 2 nautical miles southwest off Kiev, Greece, a midship explosion blasted on the starboard side, which flooded the engine area. While the ship had taken a 4 degrees list, so the captain hoped that she will sink within... Captain hoped? According to this site I'm reading, it said the captain hoped that she would sink within 20 minutes. That can't be right. The water penetrated into the second boiler room head of the engines. The list of SS Burdigala increased, and the captain ordered to abandon ship. Immediately, the crew, under the supervision of the captain and chief engineer and the second officer Mercier, launched lifeboats in water and abandoned ship. 15 minutes after the abandoned ship order was given, Burdigala broke in two by a second explosion and sank off the northwest coast of Kiev to a depth of 70 meters. If this seems slightly familiar to you, that's because it is. The Kiev Channel is not just the sinking wreck home of it's not just the remnants of the Burdigala that sank there. Less than a few miles away, also in the Kiev Channel, is where the Britannic went down. So they both sank in the Kiev Channel. So, I know this has been a really long video, but that is the story of SS Burdigala, or SS Friedrich, whichever you would like to call it. She had a very long, or should I say, very eventful career. I shouldn't say long, because it really didn't last that long. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Andre Doria is coming up next, soon, at least sometime today. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Like I said, have a good Thanksgiving. Enjoy your turkey, if you have turkey. And I'll see you next video.